What's up everyone, my name is Soren Iverson. I'm a product designer at Cash App, and today I'm going to teach you how to create dialogues in Figma in accordance with Google's design guidelines. As always, if you're not familiar with material design, I recommend going to Google's site and playing around with their interactive demos and reading some of the documentation if you want more context. Let's dive in. There are three types of dialogues we're going to design today. First is an alert dialogue. This will interrupt users with urgent information, details, or actions. For example, let's say you were discarding a draft email. A dialogue would ask if you're sure you want to discard an item from your drafts. This has optional title text and buttons can be stacked or side by side. Next, there are simple dialogues. They can display items that are immediately actionable when selected, but there's no buttons associated with them. Let's say you had multiple social media accounts like Twitter. If you wanted to switch between those accounts, a modal might appear that says select your account, and then you could choose from one of the options below. Finally, we have confirmation dialogues. These give users the ability to provide confirmation of a choice before committing. An example of this would be, let's say you wanted to change your phone ringtone. The dialog header would say change ringtone, and then the items below might be different tones that you could hear on your phone as you're choosing between your selection. The top and bottom section of this are fixed, and the middle portion is scrollable. Let's first create our alert dialog. I'm going to create a title. Let's just call this dialog for now. Keep this as SF Pro. We'll set the weight to semi-bold. We're going to change the type size here to 18 pixels. The 24 pixel line height. We'll make this color a dark gray. I am going to apply auto layout just so that you can see what I'm working with. Let's add a fill here, and we'll make this white. You'll notice that I already have some local styles available. You won't have those in your Figma file by default, but if you click on the link in the description, there's a Figma file in the community that you can download for free. Beneath this, I'll create some supporting text. When I duplicate this, it goes side to side, so let's change that in auto layout to vertical direction. I'll add some copy here. I'm going to change the size of this to 14 pixels. Let's make the line height 20 pixels, and then we're going to make this regular, and then I'm going to switch this to a bit lighter gray. Next, I am going to go to my assets panel, and I am going to go to my buttons. I'm going to go here. Let's take this, drag it in here. We're actually going to make this a tertiary button so that there's no background like you saw in the mock-up earlier. Let's duplicate this, and then I'm going to hit Shift A to apply auto layout, and then I'm going to have these be side by side as well and make the space between them 8 pixels. According to Material Design's guidelines, these dialogues are typically 240 pixels wide, so I'm going to change that now. And then I'm going to select both of these and set the horizontal resizing to fill container. That way the text will go all the way from left to right. I'm going to increase the horizontal padding to 24 pixels and the vertical padding to 20 pixels. And then I am going to top right align content. And then I'm going to type button 1 and button 2 here. And then I'm going to set these to contents. Then I'm going to apply a 4 pixel border radius here. Let's call this alert. I'm going to add some real copy here. Now I need to fix some of the spacing issues on this component. I'm going to select these two layers, hit Shift A, and then change the space between to 8 pixels. And then I'm going to do the space between this box of content and these two buttons and change it to 24 pixels. I'm going to select my entire layer then and go to this little box right here and separate all of the paddings. And then this bottom one I will have be 8 pixels. Now that I have that, I'm going to create another version of this. Let's make a version of this with no title. So I'm going to delete that out here. I changed the text on this so that it made sense without the headline. And now I'm going to take both of these, duplicate them down here, and then I'm going to take these buttons and I'm going to vertically rather than horizontally stack them. I don't see this version used very often, but it's part of Google's material design guidelines, so I figured I should include it. Now I'm going to select all of these and I'm going to go up here and create a component set. Let's call this alert. I'll call that first property title. Then I'm going to select the two components with a title and say true. Then I'm going to say false for the ones that don't. Now if I select this and bring it out here, I can turn that on or off really easily. I also need to make a version that has stacked versus non-stacked buttons. So again, let's select this entire component set. I'm going to create a property here. Let's call this stacked buttons, false, create a property. And then for these two, it is true. If I take this component, bring it out here, can adjust the title, and change whether or not the buttons are stacked. Now let's create our simple dialog. I'm going to select this entire component, detach the instance, and then I'll take this box of text up here, hit Command-Shift-G to ungroup it, and then I'll delete the subcopy here because we're not going to need it. And I'm going to change this to say select backup account. I'm going to create a profile picture component. So let's make a rectangle, and we're going to have this be 40 pixels. Let's apply 100 pixels of border radius. I grabbed a few profile pictures here just so we have them. I am going to create a component set here and just call this profile picture. And I'm just going to call this options and we'll name this 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to take one of these, add it into here, and I'm going to change this to be left align rather than right align. I deleted those button components because you don't have buttons in a simple dialog. And then I'm going to reset this bottom padding to 20 pixels. Now that I have my profile pictures, I'm going to grab one, bring it in here. I am going to also create some text, and then I'm going to hit Shift A and have these be side by side and have the space between be 12 pixels. And then let's have this be left align centered. And then we'll set this to fill container, and then we'll set this to fill container. I'm actually going to remove this here, and I'm going to create a component out of that as well. Let's call this row, and then I'm going to take this and duplicate it 3 times. Now that I have this, let's hit Shift A, set the spacing between to be 16 pixels, and then let's swap out these profile pictures really fast. Change this to 2 and this to 3, and then we're good to go. We have a simple component that lists a few different options that you can choose from. I'm going to go ahead and create a component here. The last component that we need to make is our confirmation dialog. I'm going to take our alert component, detach this instance, and change the copy. I've added in some copy here to make this a bit longer, and I'm going to call this confirm. And then I'm going to make another version of this, but I'm going to do the same thing that we did for our alert dialog, just stack these buttons. This is a CTA with more text. I'm going to select this button and say fill container. The only difference here is that there's now a version that can support CTAs that might have more text than would fit on one line. Let's call this default. We'll call this stacked. And then the last one is a little bit trickier to design. It actually has a top fixed bar and a bottom fixed bar. So I'm going to take this right here, and I am going to change this from auto layout to a frame. And then I'm going to click in here and remove auto layout from all this. And then let's apply a fill here that's white. Let's make this 4 pixels of rounding. And then I'm going to change the text here, remove this subcopy, remove auto layout here. I'm going to make this a frame, and this frame should be 64 pixels high. And then let's have this go from the left to the right here. I'm going to change this constraint property to scale, and then I'm going to make fill white, and then I'm going to add a stroke, but the stroke will only be on the bottom and it will be a light gray. I need to do the same thing for the buttons on the bottom. We'll take these, have them be 8 pixels from the bottom left and 8 pixels from the bottom right. We'll frame this selection as well, have this be a total of 52 pixels high, and we'll have this go from the left to the right here. Add a white background, a stroke that's only on the top, and then we'll make this that light gray. And then I'm going to align that to the top, and I'm going to have this be fixed to the bottom. So now if I take this frame, I can resize it, and this will scale according to the size. I also need to set this to scale, and I need to set these buttons to be right aligned. If I resize it horizontally, it respects that as well. Now we have our fixed header and our fixed footer. Let's add items to select from here. So I'm going to change the height of this to be 300 just so that we have a little bit more real estate. I'm going to pull the text from over here, call this item 1. And then I'm also going to make a radio component. A radio component is really simple. We'll just make a rectangle that's 24 pixels wide, round it out, 2 pixel stroke on the inside, and then we'll make this a light gray. We'll have these be 12 pixels away from each other, and then I need to have 24 pixels of padding on either side. So we'll set the width of this to 156, and then we're going to change this to contents. Then I'm going to take 2 of these, have them be below each other. Let's have this say item 2. I applied auto layout here. Let's continue to do that. I'll just say item 3, say item 4. By default, this will be 16 pixels from the top. And then you can see here, item 5 actually starts to cut off. And we're going to add one more item just for illustrative purposes. I'm going to take this frame, and I'm actually going to put it in another frame, and then I am going to have this go all the way up to here, and then this align with the bottom bar, and then I'm going to clip the content, and then I'm going to go to prototype, and I'm going to set the overflow scrolling to vertical scrolling. I'm going to duplicate this a few more times, and now if I click on this frame and hit flow starting point, and then I play my prototype, and then you can see that I can scroll and the items are shown, but they don't overlap with the top or bottom bars. That looks good. Let's remove this flow starting point, and then I'm going to call this scrolling, and then I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to distribute the horizontal spacing. Let's make that 40 pixels. I'm going to create a component set, call this confirm, and then we'll call this property type. And now if I take take this, move it over here, default scrolling stacked. A couple things we need to change here is we need to set this to fill container. We also need to set the text within to fill the container. And then if I resize this, the text will resize accordingly. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope that this video helped you better understand how dialogues work, the best way to design simple ones according to Google's material design guidelines, and more importantly, that you feel comfortable creating your own next time you're in Figma. If you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Soren, and I'll see you in the next video.